Our story today begins with a small passenger plane heading towards America. Suddenly, one of the passengers becomes surprised and asks the flight attendant why the flight route changed suddenly. She begins to explain to him that the weather on the main route has become very bad, and that is why the pilot decides to change the route and pass over the Amazon. And since the number of passengers on this flight is only 8, no one cares much about this matter. After a while, the plane suddenly flies off. It begins to shake violently, and the pilot notices that the GPS system has completely stopped, and even the control panel is no longer responding. He immediately tries to communicate with the control station, but all his attempts fail. This is because the radio communication system also stops. The strangest thing is that the pilot feels from the beginning that something wrong will happen. While he is trying to control the plane, he takes out a mobile phone and records his latest video. And in the video he says that this plane is hiding very dangerous secrets. From the first time he saw these things, he suspected that a major disaster might happen, and then the plane began to fall rapidly toward the ground, and in front of them a huge forest and high mountains appeared. The pilot was trying to slow down the plane's speed by using tree branches to reduce the force of the collision, and after the plane continued to move for a long distance, it finally stopped. The surprise was that most of the passengers emerged alive, except for the flight attendant, who was not wearing a belt. Safety is dead in its place, and then the passengers begin to speak in fear, and no one knows what to do. At first, they make sure that no one has serious injuries except the flight attendant, and then 2 of the passengers quickly enter the cabin to see the condition of the pilot, but as soon as they see him, they are shocked because huge tree branches are inside from his chest and outside from the other side. But despite that, he is still alive. Good luck. The 2 are trying to move the chair away a little so they can breathe, and suddenly they hear the sound of fire coming from outside the plane, and then all the passengers get off quickly and try to put out the fire. This is because they know that if the plane burns completely, they will not have a place to hide until someone rescues them. After a while, the world calms down a little, and the 8 passengers sit together and try to understand that they have reached which part of the Amazon yet. Changing the route, and they all discover that there is no network on the mobile phones, which means communicating with the outside world in the middle of this forest will be almost impossible without a special device. Also, the forest will extend for hundreds of miles, and therefore, getting out of it will remain almost impossible for a man. The biggest disaster is that no one outside at all knows that the plane crashed here, which means that no one would think to look around for them. And suddenly one of the passengers named Jake Beggs suggests that everyone introduce himself and says that it is necessary. They understand each other first so that they know how to make the right decision, and then Jack begins to introduce himself and says that he works as an insurance investigator and his job is to expose people who try to commit fraud in insurance. He also says that he was returning to America after he finished a case, and after him a second man introduces himself and says that his name is Kevin and that he works as a doctor, and Kevin explains that after years of working in medicine, he will open a medical equipment company and will return to America for his work. And then Kevin, he sees the condition of the pilot and understands that his vocal cords have been destroyed, and because of this, the pilot is no longer able to speak, but at the same time, he is the only person who can know how to get them out of this place, and they must save him in any way. Then, along, the 3rd passenger tells them that her name is Christy, and she loves to travel and destroy the world, and uploads her videos to social media. At the same time, while she is talking about her life, she suddenly becomes silent and does not respond when someone asks her about her past. And then the 4th passenger, he says that his name is Carlos, and he says that he is a wrestler and he comes from Mexico, and he says that he is going to America to participate in a fighting tournament. And after that a young couple appears and introduces themselves and says that their names are Danny and Amy. And they say that they are newly married and going to spend their honeymoon in America. And in the end there is an older couple, and they say that they are David and Lisa. And they explain that they work in a hotel in a small city in America. And David says he is going to have a heart operation. And after everyone has finished speaking, they understand each other in a simple way. At that time, they have with them the pilot, who is in a difficult condition and can no longer speak. Suddenly, Jack suggests that they collect the food and water that is in the plane and divide it among them, so that they know how much they will finish. After they calculate, they find that the food and water will be enough for about 3 days, and at that time Jack says that if there is rain or a storm, they may have to go ahead inside the plane, and for this reason, they must move the body of the flight attendant outside in order to expand the place. And after they finish this step, they start looking for a solution that will get them out of this place. And they go to ask the pilot if there is a satellite communication device in the plane, and they also try to understand how the plane went off course and entered this forest without any clear reason, and the pilot is trying to speak, but it is clear that he knows something and is unable to explain it. Then Jack says that since Kevin is a doctor, he must treat the pilot, but Kevin refuses and says that his condition is serious and that there are no tools or medicine here, and if they intervene, he may die faster, and for that reason they decide to wait a while until his condition calms down. At the same time, Lisa takes the food out of the plane and divides it among them, and after eating, their hope begins to return a little that they might survive, and at that time Christy looks towards a mountain. Ollie says that it is possible that if they go above it, they will find a net or any signal, and she suggests that they try to go there, but it is already nightfall, so they say that it will be okay, we will leave it for tomorrow. At this moment, the pilot's condition suddenly goes down, and Kevin, who had been silent the whole time, feels that the situation is dangerous, so he decides to intervene and perform the operation himself, and asks them to bring any tools from the plane, and in fact, they collect simple things like a knife and eyeliner. Sterilization is needed, and without any anesthesia, the operation begins while the pilot is in pain and moves very violently, but despite that, the operation is still complete, and after he finishes, he tells them that if the pilot rests, his condition may improve in the morning. And at a time when everyone is sleeping at night, there was a person wearing a mask, moving quietly towards the injured pilot and getting close to him, concealing himself and stepping on himself, rigid to the point of preventing him from breathing, and at that time the pilot began to weaken until he remained completely silent. He dies quietly, and the second day in the morning, as soon as everyone wakes up, they find that the pilot is dead, and they are very surprised because his condition had improved after the operation, and he was still intending to tell them about important things, and Dr. Kevin examines him and tells them that there is no infection or any disease in his body, which means that his death is permanent and not natural. And then everyone starts talking and saying that if necessary, someone would stay awake and watch him all night, but it will be too late and nothing will happen. It works, and in the end they say that he might have died due to his injuries, so they take his body and put it next to the body of the flight attendant under a tree in the forest so that a rescue team comes to find them. At this moment, no one cares that the pilot's phone falls out of his pocket, and Danny takes it with all secrecy, and Amy asks him what he did, so he tells her not to tell anyone because he doesn't trust anyone at all, and then Danny leaves. He stands alone with the body and cuts the finger from the pilot's hand to unlock the phone with the fingerprint. At the same time, David and Lisa are talking, and Lisa says that she does not think his death was natural, and this is because she was a nurse before and saw a condition similar to this, and she says that his face was dark in color, like someone who died from suffocation, meaning someone intended to let him die, but she did not tell anyone because she felt that the killer could be one of them and David. He is shocked and asks who could do this, so Lisa tells him that they should be careful and that no one can trust anyone, and suddenly Lisa feels that someone is listening to them, so she quickly shuts up. At the same time, Christy goes to Amy and says that she knows that Danny and Amy are not going on a honeymoon, and then Amy confesses and says that she is the daughter of a very rich man, and Danny used to work as a driver for them. But they had a love story, and they ran away because her family will not agree, and Christy understands that they were hiding the truth so that no one would doubt them. At this time, Carlos comes with good news and says that he found a tracking device in the wreckage of the plane, and if they take it over the mountain and turn it on, they can respond to rescue, because the signal will reach far away. He says that he can fix it until tomorrow, and everyone feels a little hopeful that there is a chance they will get out of this place. And Carlos says that his father was an electrician, and he was the one who taught him all this work. But he wanted to remain a fighter and follow the path of his father. Jack says that they will fix the device today, and tomorrow morning they go out to the mountain and turn it on, and suddenly Lisa says bad news that changes everything, namely that the food was stolen, even though they have only been in this place for 1 day. And the food that was supposed to last 3 days will be almost gone, and then Jack and Christy quickly enter the plane. They search for the person who stole the food and understand that what happened was intentional, and that there is someone who finishes the food intentionally. In the middle of what they are looking for, Jack notices that Christy is being searched in a very organized manner, as if she is accustomed to investigation. At that time, he says that she is not a normal person at all, because no normal person would do that, and he is looking for any evidence. At this moment, Christy stands up and tells them the truth and says that she is a journalist and is destroying many countries to expose gangs and criminals. She exposes them, and that's why she hid her identity, so that if there was a criminal among them, he wouldn't think of attacking her. At that time, everyone understands that each one of them is hiding something about his life, and since the food and water are diminishing, Jack says that Carlos must go to fix the GPS device, and the rest must go out and look for food and water in the forest. As they walk, they find a blue mushroom on the ground, and Christy examines it and warns them. Anyone who comes close to it can die within hours of a poisonous fungus, and you tell them not to go near it at all. You also say that this type appears in damp places, meaning that there is definitely water nearby. After a while of walking, they find a puddle of water, but the water does not look clean and will not be useful for drinking. Suddenly there is a sound of gunfire, and they all come back quickly and find that David is the one setting off a fire. And at that time it becomes clear that David and Lisa were hiding a weapon with them from the beginning. They did not tell anyone, and Lisa says that they did not want to frighten anyone, and then they cooked the food and they all ate to satisfy their hunger. At the same time, Christy and Jack were trying to clean water from the pond so that they could drink, and so the day passed without them being hungry or thirsty. But Amy could not eat, so David was eating her share too, and after they had finished eating, Jack said, he tells them if there is someone else hiding. Anything like David and Lisa, and then Carlos takes out his mask and says that he has no one else with him, and tells them that tomorrow he will try to turn on the GPS device to call for rescue. And on the same night, while they are sleeping, it turns out that he suddenly goes shopping. And at the same time, someone from afar looks at them while he is hiding. And then this person takes out a satellite phone and calls someone, telling her that the plan is going as it is. And he is sure that it is. He continues faster. And then it becomes clear that someone among them is using a satellite phone without anyone paying attention. And on the second day of the morning, everyone wakes up to the sound of Lisa screaming, and she is crying and saying that David is dead. And Dr. Kevin is examining him and saying that there is butter coming out of a bug. And this means that he ate poison food, and that he probably ate from the same poisonous mushrooms that they saw in the forest. And when Lisa hears this, she collapses. The shock screams at them and tells them that one of them is killing them, one after the other, but until now no one understands why anyone would do this in the first place. This is because they did not all know each other even before they met. At that time, Lisa reminds them that the death of the first pilot was not natural and tells them that at the time it was very clear that someone had been strangled by his own hands, but she remained silent so as not to let everyone get into fights. They suspect each other, and now Lisa thinks that she told these words to her husband, David, and at that time she felt that someone was listening to them from afar, and the one who heard these words is the one who will target David after that, because he was close to knowing the truth. And then everyone thinks about the poisonous mushrooms that they saw in the forest. And they understand that someone took some of it and mixed it in David's food while he was sleeping. And the most dangerous thing is that David ate what Amy ate as well, meaning that the real target might have been Amy, not him. And at this moment, the horror is increasing more and more because each one of them now sees that anyone could be the killer. And the accident of the plane, its fall, and the deaths of people are one and the same. All of this confirms that the matter is not a coincidence at all. And each one of them remains distant from the other, and can no longer trust each other at all. At this time, let me show Amy the mobile phone of the pilot who was hiding, and they open the video that the pilot recorded before he died, and in the video is the pilot. He warns them that there is a big secret inside the plane, and that this crash was planned from the beginning, and at that time everyone is sure that there is a big game going on around them. At the same time, Carlos tells them that he has finished repairing the GPS device and explains that they must go to the top of the mountain in order for it to work and send a distress signal. But now the trust between everyone has become almost non-existent, and they begin to think who will go to the mountain and who will continue to protect the camp. The other, Jack, decides that he would rather go down in the camp, and Carlos, Dr. Kevin, and Christy go out to the mountain with a GPS device while they are walking on the road. Each of them remains wary of the other, and while they were going out, Carlos was sticking gum in his hand, and Christy looked at his paper and understood that it was from the same food that was stolen before, and at that time the suspicion increases that Carlos might be the one who stole the food. But she does not say anything and stays away. She watches silently, and at the same time, she takes the GPS device from his hand and puts it with her so that she doesn't have a chance to spoil it or hide it from her. They keep going to the top of the mountain, step by step, and the fatigue increases on them. After a long time, they finally reach the summit. Suddenly, Christy's legs slip, and she falls on the edge of the mountain, and she keeps hanging on. At the same moment, the tracking device falls very close to the edge. Even if the device falls under them, he will be lost and no one will be able to reach them again, and Christy extends her hands with all her might, and tries to reach the first device, and catches up with it at the last moment. Carlos and Kevin immediately run to her and pull her upstairs, and after a great effort they go out with her and the device. This situation makes the tension between them decrease a little because each one of them sees that the second one helped him, and they will not let Carlos ride the signal device over the mountain, and Kevin tries to open the mobile phone, but there is nothing. Network, meaning there is no way to communicate other than this device. After a while, the device turns on and continues to send a signal for help. Carlos says that there is a possibility of a rescue team arriving within hours. After that, the sun begins to set and they return to the camp. Below in the camp, the atmosphere is full of fear and suspicion among everyone. Lisa holds the weapon and stays away from Jack, and does not want to get close to anyone. After the death of her husband, she is afraid of everyone, and Danny gets close to Amy and tries to control her. He tells her not to talk to anyone, and says that he is the only one who can protect her. At that time, Amy begins to doubt him and feels that she does not know the truth about him. She thinks that she gave up her life and walked behind him without thinking, but now everything around her has become scary, and Danny gets angry and says that he is the one who saved her more than once, but his behavior makes her afraid of him for the first time. And the rest of the people are all sitting around, not trusting him. The second, after a while, the three of them return from the mountain and say that the device is working and that rescue is actually possible soon. It is nightfall and everyone is trying to sleep, but fear is overwhelming them. Carlos is in the darkness and begins to train alone in order to maintain his level. He had stolen food before to protect himself. Suddenly, while in the darkness, a person appears standing in front of him, wearing the same mask as Carlos, and before he understands anything, the person quickly attacks him with a knife. Seconds later, Carlos dies in the place, and the morning comes, and everyone discovers that he has disappeared, and they start looking for him everywhere, and Kevin says that if the device was working, it would have sent a signal that there were people in need of rescue. But he discovers that the device's wire was cut at night, meaning that in the end, no signal went out outside the mountain, and this means that no one from the outside knows that they need help now, and everyone is running back into the forest. But without any results, in the end they decide to go back to the mountain to see the device for themselves, and Christy agrees to go with Kevin, because if he goes alone, he will be in great danger. Indeed, the two of them go towards the mountain quickly, and suddenly while walking, they raise their eyes to the sky and see many birds being destroyed in one place. This scene makes them understand that something wrong happened there, and instead of continuing their way to the mountain, they go. Near this place, when they arrive, they are shocked to find Carlos murdered and thrown on the ground. It is clear that someone killed him the same night and left him there. Kevin and Christy quickly return to the camp and inform the rest of them that another person died. The shock makes the suspicion between them grow more and more, and everyone continues to see that Danny and Amy are the closest to the accusation, and this is because Carlos was sleeping close to them, and Danny is trying to justify and say that he has nothing to do with it. it has anything to do with anything, but no one believes anyone at all now, and everyone keeps asking the same question, who is killing them, and why one after the other? Lisa surprises everyone and says that the bullets from her gun have disappeared and only one bullet remains with her. And Kevin says that while he was treating Danny, he saw a mark on his back, and it looked like this, a mark linked to gangs, and this statement increases the suspicion around Danny more and more. Danny defends himself and says that this mark was placed on him against his will while he was in prison. He says that he was imprisoned unjustly, and that he tried to start a new life after he got out. He confirms that he really loves Amy and wants to protect her, not hurt her, even if the beginning was wrong. Our story today begins with a small passenger plane heading towards America. Suddenly one of the passengers becomes surprised and asks the flight attendant why the flight route changed suddenly. She begins to explain to him that the weather on the main route has become very bad, and that is why the pilot decides to change the route and pass over the Amazon, and since the number of passengers on this flight is only 8, no one cares much about this matter. In the midst of this tension, the weather suddenly changes, heavy rain, and a strong storm comes to the place, and everyone is running inside the plane to hide from the rain, and suddenly it happens. A strong sound from above, and part of the roof of the plane shakes and breaks, and then many bags fall from the ground, and when he looks inside the bags, he discovers something very shocking, and this is because he sees bags full of white bags, and everyone quickly understands that they are drugs. And thus the issue begins to become clearer and clearer. The plane was not just an ordinary plane, no, it was a smuggling shipment, and the cheap ticket price was due to this issue. Danny learns what the shipment looks like and says that this is a big drug trade. He understands that the plane was part of a huge smuggling operation, and they begin to understand that the disaster may have been intentional from the beginning. I mean, someone could have planned to shoot down the plane because of this shipment, but the big question is still why someone kills one passenger. At this moment, Amy gets scared and runs off the plane without thinking, and Danny runs after her quickly, and Kevin warns that what? Someone goes out alone, and Lisa also takes her weapon and looks around for it in the middle of the rain and the storm, and the weather outside is very difficult, and there is no clear vision. Suddenly, the same killer appears behind Lisa and attacks her quickly, stabbing her more than once. Lisa tries before she dies to remove the mask from him in order to know who he is, but she does not catch up and falls to the ground, and thus Lisa dies, and the morning comes, and everyone discovers her body, and this is a shock. She breaks them more and more, and after all this, the trust between everyone completely collapses, and everyone continues to see that the other could be the killer. And no one had clear evidence of anything until Christy suddenly points the gun at Jake and says that she found bullets in his bag from Lisa's gun, meaning the bullets were stolen from him, and she also took out a mobile satellite from his bag, and so Christy remains convinced that Jack is the killer, but Jack he defends himself, and says that he actually took the bullets from the gun. But all of this is because he was suspicious that Lisa could be a danger to everyone. He confirms that the mobile is not his, and that someone put it in his bag to implicate him. At this moment, Kevin says that they should use the mobile to call for help, but Christy says that she tried before, and this mobile does not work without a code, and without this code there is nothing. Any use of the mobile phone, and since it was taken out of Jack's bag, everyone thought that the code was definitely with him, but Jack decides that he doesn't know anything about the mobile phone at all, and at that time my support loses his temper and attacks Jake. But Kevin stops him and says that if they kill him, they will never unlock the mobile phone, and at that time, they will not be able to get out of this place at all, so they decide to tie up Jack and keep him alive, and then everyone agrees that they must know the truth about him, and Kevin takes responsibility for investigating him and goes to him and asks him again about the code. But Jack does not change his words, and says that he is innocent and does not know anything, and Kevin, under pressure, begins to treat him with extreme violence and tries to make him confess. At the same time, the other three go to the top of the mountain to check the signal device, and when they arrive, they discover something that has broken the wires. The device was completely cut off, meaning from the beginning, there was no signal that went outside. Basically, Christy quickly reconnected the wires again, and the device finally worked and stayed on. The signal is going to a faraway place in America. At the same time, in America, rescue teams start circling the plane again, but the problem is that their location is in a very remote area, deep in the forest, and beyond the limits of direct control. At this time, a government investigator named Claire arrives at the airline company, and opens an official investigation against them because of the plane's disappearance. The company's director responds to them calmly and sarcastically, and says that the matter is outside their responsibility, and this is because the plane crashed in a country. Secondly, at this moment, a big secret comes to light. Kyler is not only right, no, she is also Jack's wife, and Jack was originally on the plane on a secret mission to uncover a large drug smuggling network behind which the company was behind it. And after they discover that Jack is inside to investigate the smuggling case, and Claire was looking for him, he begins to show them that Jack is not the killer, but at the same time the one in the woods is still suspicious of him and not sure why Christy is going. She is alone with him and begins to notice from his words and actions that he might actually be wronged. At that time, Jack tries to explain to her and says that if I was the killer, I would have taken the entire gun, not just the bullets. It was a long time ago that I had finished with you all early, and with his words, Christy begins to think and feel that his words are logical and that there is no contradiction in them. And at this moment, she makes the decision and untie his rope and let him walk and tells him to stay away because someone catches him a second time. And then in the morning, when the rest of the people wake up, they find that Jack suddenly disappeared. At this time, Christy is acting normal, as if she does not know anything, but Danny and Amy are afraid because if Jack is innocent, or even not innocent, he is now free and can take revenge on them, especially against Kevin, who had tortured him before, and at that time. Kevin himself begins to fear and get nervous, and at the same time, let him make the decision and say that it is necessary. He and Amy stay away from the rest, and this is because he no longer trusts anyone, but Christy intervenes and tells them that if they split up, the killer will be able to kill them one by one with ease, but Danny refuses and says that even though they were together, many of them also died. And that's why I think it's best for them to separate. At the same time, Jack is far away from them, and is sitting alone and trying to hide, and this is because he is wanted and accused by everyone and does not stay. I trust no one except Christy, and at that time Danny reassures Amy and tells her that nothing will happen to her, and at the same time he says that the GPS device has already been activated and that rescue is on the way. In fact, the Mexican army is picking up the signal and moving towards the forest. At the time when Danny and Amy are sitting together and the rest are each in a different direction, suddenly they hear the sound of bullets in the forest, and at that time everyone is running quickly towards the camp. When they arrive, they find that Danny and Amy have been killed with bullets in the back, and at this moment the whole situation is turning, and only 3 remain, who are Christy, Jack, and Kevin. At that time, each one looks closely at the other, because the killer is still among them. At the same time, the helicopter is almost arriving at the signal location. This means that survival is very close, but the truth is that the killer is still present among them, and at this time we see that Dr. Kevin, Christy, and Jack are still living in the middle. There was great tension and suspicion, and each one of them saw that the second one might be the real killer, and Christy saw that Jack was the culprit, especially since he was the one who was tied up, and then it was untied, and then new deaths occurred like Letty and Amy. On the other hand, Kevin saw that Christy and Jag were working together because it was not logical that she would untie the chains of an accused person and trust him so easily. Suddenly, a Mexican army helicopter appeared over the area, but the clouds and fog were thick. The visibility became very difficult, so they were unable to locate the plane or the survivors below, and they kept looking around the place for a while, hoping that they would find any sign, but in the end, they had to return so that there would not be any collision. They agreed to return again the next day when it calmed down a little. On the ground 3, they realized that they were still trapped and there was no immediate find, so they began to think of a way to let the pilots see them. From the sky, and Jack suggested that they make a clear mark for him on the top of the mountain, but suspicion prevailed and Christy refused to move with him alone because Kevin had a weapon, and Kevin at that moment decided to prove that he was innocent. So he threw his weapon on the ground, and all the bullets came out and threw them into the water, as if saying that he was done. He did not want to threaten anyone, and then they began to agree on a new plan, and Christy said that they would go up the mountain and light a fire in a high place so that she would stay. A clear reference to the army, but Kevin refused to go with Jack specifically because he still saw that he might be a danger to him because of what had happened between them before. The agreement was that Christy would go with Jake, especially since she was the one who freed him from the shackles, which made her the closest person he could accompany him without any fear. During the boarding, Jack was moving with difficulty because of the torture he had been subjected to before. They sat down for a while and started talking about what was happening, and everyone was trying to understand the truth in the middle. The madness surrounding them, and Christy at this moment declared that she was not convinced that Jack was the killer, and that her suspicions began to increase towards Kevin himself. But suddenly the sound of a gunshot was heard very close to the camp. The two froze in their place, and then ran quickly towards the sound in order to see what had happened. When they arrived, the great shock was that Kevin was lying on the ground, killed by a bullet that hit him from behind, and his body was almost submerged in water, even his features. She was hurt because of the animals in the place, and the biggest shock was that at that moment she was saying something terrifying. Kevin died, and he was alone. This means that the killer was not one of the two at that time, or at least it means that this figure is saying that, and this of course increases the suspicion and confusion more and more. At the same time, there is no evidence that a stranger from outside the place entered, and this is because the forest is completely isolated, and this makes the situation much more complicated. Indeed, if he is not one of those remaining, how did this killing happen in the first place? The situation has become worse than it was before, because now there is no trust in anyone, and everyone is still living with the possibility that the real killer is still there and moving among them. They decide to stay inside the plane until morning, and then in the morning, they go out to the mountain and light a fire to send a signal to the army. But the fog was very heavy over the mountain, so no one could see anything, and so they sat next to each other. They were waiting for the GPS device, and were thinking that a helicopter might come at any time. Jack tells Christy that he is not just an ordinary person. No, he works as a government investigator, and he comes looking for the truth about the plane accident and explains that someone exposed him, and that is why the plane fell intentionally in the woods, so the truth prefers to hide him. Then he tells her about his wife, Claire, and tells her that she is also an investigator and is looking for him, and not she will keep looking until she finds him, and at the same time, Claire is talking to her daughter and telling her that she would rather look for her father and will not come back until she finds him. Then she goes to Mexico and puts pressure on the army to speed up the search for the plane. Over the mountain, the sun is rising a little and the fog is starting to thin, and suddenly they feel that there is someone close to them, and Christy tells Jack that he is sitting there because his legs are tired, and she will keep going to see that sound. Where is he coming from? But Jack gets up and walks after her so as not to leave her alone. Suddenly someone hits Christy in the brain, and she falls to the ground. It turns out that he is the real killer. The killer takes out her weapon and walks towards Jack. He is wearing black and his face is covered so that no one knows him. Jack tries to escape and moves away until he reaches the edge of the mountain and asks the killer, "Why are you doing this? And who are you even? And what is your goal?" But the killer, he doesn't respond. He takes out the weapon and is hit by a bullet, and Jack falls off the mountain, and then Christy is still living with difficulty, but the killer is approaching her as well, and Christy says to him before she dies, "Please show me how," and the killer removes the catcher. And Christy sees him and is very surprised, and this is because she was not expecting this at all, and then the killer gets rid of her too, and in the morning the army returns again, and the fog is a little lighter, and the GPS signal has turned on. They find the wreckage of the plane under the mountain and the rescue team descends there, but they discover that no one is alive at all. They find that all the bags and belongings that were on the plane have disappeared. After a while, they find the bodies gathered in one place, some of which appear to have been dead for a long time. The bodies are transported to the hospital. At the same time, Claire receives news that the plane's location has been exposed, but there are no survivors, including Jack, and at that time, Claire collapses and remains shocked. Very often, it happens that the army brings a female doctor to examine the bodies of the 9 they met, and they put all the bodies in a special room so that an autopsy can be performed on them, and they can find out the real cause of death. At the same time, the company's director, Cora, keeps monitoring everything, and it remains clear that she has a hidden plan. After a while, the doctor who the army had brought for investigation stops her on the way, and makes an excuse that they want to work with her. Interview, so they take her to the side, and as soon as she is alone, they finish her off and kill her, and then one of them replaces her and enters the camp in her place as if she were the doctor. All the bodies remain surrounded in a room, and suddenly one of the corpses is cut from the inside with a knife, and someone comes out of it. I mean, there was someone still alive until now, and this is where Dr. Kevin comes out. This remains the biggest surprise in the whole story, and he is the one who starts it. He opens the checks one at the same time. Cora also enters the place using the identity of the doctor who was killed and says that she must finish the work alone, so they take a soldier with her who enters to help her. When they enter the morgue, they find all the checks open, and the soldier is looking around and does not understand what is going on. Suddenly, Kevin comes out from behind him and makes him lose consciousness. Cora is happy when she sees him, and they meet each other as if they were working together from the beginning, and it appears the whole plan was to get the drug shipments inside the bodies, and that's why Kevin was doing all this, killing people one at a time, and putting drugs inside the corpses so that no one would notice anything, and when the army came, they didn't find anything because all the shipments were hidden from the beginning, and at the same time, Kevin was also hiding inside a body bag in order to enter the place without anyone noticing, and then they started. They dig up the bodies, and burn the whole place to erase any evidence from the outside. Claire arrives at the place and tries to go in to see her husband's corpse, but they tell her to wait outside, and suddenly there is a big explosion inside the place, and all the people are scattered, and in the middle of the chaos, Cora and Kevin run away in the car. And the army completes a search and tries to understand who is wearing it. The catcher is killing people, but they cannot find any evidence at all, but suddenly they find a sign of life under the rubble, and it turns out that Jack is still alive, and Jack is having difficulty escaping after the bullet did not completely go through him. He also fell into a tree at the time of the fall, so he saved him and raises a sign that he is still alive, and Claire remains collapsed at first, and then she is told that he is still alive and transferred to the hospital, and after that, Jack learns that Dr. Kevin's name is not even he was in the records, and then he understood that he was the real criminal and was using a fake identity to kill people and smuggle drugs into the bodies. In the end, Jack and the army go towards Cora's place, and Cora and Kevin are thinking that everything is over and that the plan succeeded, but Kevin does not know that Jack is still alive and understands everything, and in the end, Cora is slowly being reconstructed because of Sam's gems that ended up in her food. She dies while Kevin tries to escape with drugs in a small plane, but Jack shoots him, and the bullet hits the gasoline tank. The gasoline leaks and the plane falls. In the end, the plane falls in the same place as the old accident, and Kevin dies in the same place where he was killing all the people. And here the events of our story today end. Wait for me for new videos and summaries.
قصتنا النهاردة بتبدأ مع عيلة واخدة بعضها ورايحة تصيف وتقضي وقت رايق، بس يا دوب وهم لسه بيبدأوا الأرض بتتهز بيهم هزة جامدة، وكل اللي على الشط بيطير في الهواء، والناس بتلف وشوشها وبيلاقوا الشجر بيتمسح من مكانه، ومع صرخة ترعب بيبدأ البحر يهيج وبيقلب عليهم بفيضان بيمسح الأخضر واليابس، والكل بيغرق جوه المية، وبمعجزة حقيقية ليا بتطلع من وسط الموت وبتتمسك في جذع شجر